Hello, and welcome back to the Cost of Everything podcast. If you're new here, this is where we deep dive into the numbers behind how things really work, helping estimators, analysts, and decision makers understand the true cost of everything. Today, we're talking about something fundamental but often overlooked: cost data. We use data every day in pricing, estimating, forecasting, but how reliable is it? How do we handle gaps, inconsistencies, and biases in the data we use? And is cost data better in some industries than others? To help us untangle these questions, I'm joined by Tobias Uding, a leading expert in cost analytics and data-driven decision-making. Tobias has worked across industries, helping businesses turn raw cost data into powerful insights that actually drive better financial and operational decisions. Don't forget, this interview is available both in video format on YouTube or audio on your favorite podcast platform. Wherever you're listening, your support helps us to bring more experts like Tobias and dive even deeper into the numbers that matter. Now let's get into it, understanding the true cost of cost data with Tobias Uding. So thank you for joining me. I'm introducing our guest, Tobias Uding. I think I've got that right. He's a seasoned expert in cost engineering. As head of sales of cost data based in Germany, he's led more than 80 national and international projects across a variety of industries, and that goes from automotive, electromobility, electronics, and metal, etc., etc. In addition to these professional endeavors, Tobias shares his expertise as a guest lecturer as well at several German universities, and is contributing to the future of cost engineering globally. So his extensive project experience and academic contributions make him a very good guest to have on the show. So I'd like to welcome you, Tobias, and say, how are you?
Thank you very much for these very nice words in the beginning. So it's really a pleasure being here. A great start of this happy new year. So thanks a lot.
There's a lot of discussion often about methods, about collecting data, cleaning it, and using it appropriately. But actually, what is the data, and sort of how do you gather it? How do you begin to do things with that data? And cost estimating is one of those things. And we can include things like pricing. We can include various different aspects which link to estimating. But there's a whole set of processes. But at the core of it is the data. So in terms of data, I know that, like you mentioned there, a lot of the USP is around the data that you have. I guess first question really is what is that data? How did it come about?
It's a very simple question, but it's not very simple to answer that for sure. You're right. Let me say, as I'm doing that, as said, for 9 years now, I have seen different periods of how to interpret and how to use data. So when I look back on the pre-COVID area, I was also driving all around, let's say mostly Europe, and I was talking with people and they said, data, oh, nice, but what is it? Where do I need that? Nearly nothing is changing. So, you remember these times. So,
Yeah.
And then COVID was coming and there was a much bigger pressure on the commercial and economic frame conditions. So materials were the prices and the cost of materials were increasing significantly by 15-20% per month. And then this was also decreasing after a while. And we looked on logistics as well, which was up and down and really on a level which was 10 times higher than pre-COVID. And then there was a time where we talked extensively about energy costs. And last but not least, we talked about inflation and all the effects on labor. So and these are only four. We could even talk about more costing related topics. And here you see it gets some kind of life structure because data means we're looking on different perspectives or from different perspectives. on levers which are all levering and influencing the total product cost, and getting an understanding about what's all included in this typological wording of data shows us that this is a very heterogeneous field, very challenging, because you have to find solutions. Solutions means only need the data and how to work with the data, how to interpret the data, and what's the kind of conclusion you get out of that then. And we are supporting that. Easily said, we are supporting all of that you do not have to care about that anymore, that you get all of these data really frequently updated. We do that monthly up to quarterly, depending a little bit on the data you need, because some data are changing more frequently than others. But this is all our service, and we all do that with our own team. So cost data is a process, a company, a quality stamp, you can say. So everything is within our brand, and this is why we are such successful, I guess, from the US to the UK to the Europe to India to China to Uzbekistan. Last year I was in Uzbekistan the first time in my life. So all of them are working with our data. Very interesting.
And I guess it is that that reliability element that is part of the reputation as well. In order to maintain the reputation, you have to maintain the reliability, the accuracy, the validity of that information as well, the data, not the information. But so I guess linked to that, then we do have sort of methods for data validity in cost estimating. But I guess the first thing is why is that validity important? And there's a time, as well as time value of money, there's a time value of data, I would say, as well. So the value of data in more recent times is sometimes considered more important than long-term historical data. Obviously depends on how you're using that information. But like you mentioned before, we've had a period of rapid inflation. We've had, changing commodity prices, changing labor costs, energy prices, shifting all over the place. And understanding how to use that data and how valid that data is for maybe, let's say, near-term projects or product costing now versus in 10 years time, 5 or 10 years time, depending on your time horizon. How do you first of all address those challenges around outdated or data that might have gaps or data that may not be valid now?
So it's a very popular question I receive from or in many talks. They say, how good are your data? So it doesn't matter whether this is a niche or whether this is a very frequently used data set. The intention and the ambition is that all the data are on the best level. So, and this is our main intention, which we are supporting every day, that we say, okay, if there is any data sets which we are providing, it has to be on the best possible level of evaluation. So this is what we do on our side, where we have our experience of nearly 30 years, where we have our own manpower, our own team structure, our processes. So this is something which we built up over years. So where we have also, let's say, this USP, where we have this position in the market, because let's say cost data is also offering a calculation software, and there we have a few more competitors on the market, but they are not really caring about the data directly, because it's a very specific challenge. And we always said, this is the base where we are starting with. Let's say, I know it's a very how to say, shit in, shit out. Yeah. So I said that, okay, come on, you can cut it out. So, but this is exactly how it is. So you can have the best system, you can have the best people, the best cost engineers, but without having valid data, you do not get to a valid result. And this is also something which has changed in the last years, because from my point of view, for a long time, even this niche of cost estimation, cost engineering, it was very driven by talent. So most of the people said, oh, we know about the approaches, we have some kind of processes. And at the end, the cost engineer is the god, and he knows how to calculate that. And when there was a mistake, it was not really up to the data. Nobody was really talking about data. Perhaps it was depending on the fact that not really so many factors were changing in economics since the crisis of 2008 and 9. So, but in the last years, this has changed significantly. It has becoming an own pillar, a quality pillar, you can say, next to talent, next to tools, next to knowledge. And there we definitely say we want to be the company who is providing this level of quality of the data, and we are working every day on getting the best data from several sources, from talks, from our network. So we do not get data directly from our clients, but we are always in contact with them. We're talking with them. We want to know how are Indian companies looking on the reality they see there, and a Chinese one, and a US one, and a European one. And by using not only the primary and secondary source data, which we get from several sources, we also combine that with these feedbacks. Because sometimes the reality cannot be found in an official source. So, and this is why it makes it very challenging, but this is our everyday work we do.
So there's some level of reading into the data. It's not just taking the numbers from these sources and putting them into databases. It's saying, actually, what's this data telling me? And is that verified by the experience that, of the people in those sectors, in those particular countries? So a bit of a slightly different question, but are there, because you work in a variety of industries, are there industries that have better data or better processes and better use of that data than others? And so which would be, in your opinion, the industries or sectors that use cost data the most effectively or collect cost data most effectively?
So definitely there is a difference in the level of maturity. Yeah. And this is depending mostly on the fact how long this cost estimation, cost engineering processes are in place. So as said in the beginning, our origin is in some kind from the automotive industry, and this is for sure let's say an industry where this is a must-have, doing cost engineering as we have talked about that. And but what was quite impressive, and this is what we have seen in the last years based on the developments we have mentioned, that many more industries started to extend their activities, and they do not do that directly on the, let's say, 100% level, but they adjust that to a specific level, what they can serve and what they can provide step by step easily. Means sometimes it's more driven by a engineer, by R&D. Sometimes it's more driven by procurement, so by the buyers. So it depends a little bit on what's your goal, what's your first touching point. The second point is what's the structure of your cost structure of your products. Are you looking on machinery where you have only one machine per year? So it's a different scaling. It has a different view on the cost elements. Is it more assembling, or is it more driven by materials, plastics, electronics, which is another topic itself? Or is it a market where we have a mass of data, where we have high range of variance? So this is why I say each industry is trying to take that into relation, to see who's working on that, what's the goal behind that, and where are the challenges. In total, all of them are working with the data. Who does the best job? It's not related to data. It's more about the potentials you can get. So when you look, for example, medical device, I would say they do not do that on the on the best level, on the most efficient level, because their resources in relation to automotive are limited. But the potentials are quite amazing because nobody has ever challenged cost structures in this way. So we see projects where we can reduce easily with a few small activities, having a rough cost structure, having very valid data as the base for sure. But using the first approaches, you get hundreds of percent difference between the price and the costs. So, as you were asking me, easily said, who's doing the best job? For sure, they do that who have the starting from scratch, who have the biggest potentials. But the more of the low-hanging fruits you have seen and you have received, the more you have to be aware that you professionalize your activities, and then you come quickly, step by step, to the level which we see from the automotive. And there it's a must-have, as said, having such processes and also having such data.
Yeah, I mean, it makes sense where it's, let's say, generation upon generation, little refinements, but very tight margins. And if you make the wrong call, then
The higher the pressure, the better your processes, your data have to be. But again, that doesn't mean that for all the other cases, it's okay having invalid data, because also in this case, you have one possibility to get the shot. So, and when you talk with somebody and they see that you are not working on such a minimum professional level, you will be kicked out. And then there is not any win you have on your side.
And do you think that's the case in both private and public sector? So if it's government type projects, do you think that they have the same level of strictness or rigor about making sure their estimates are good?
I think it is all about the motivation of your activities. So what does it mean? If you think that a lower level is quite enough because on the other side, your counterpart doesn't want to go into detail, doesn't want to talk with you about each detail, and you accept that, then you will not get the best result. So it's about your own ambition and motivation. As you said, if you have a high pressure, as we know from automotive, it's not possible to play on any other level. For all the others I mentioned as well, and this is public or non-public, it's the same. It's all about how you want to play the game, how you or what you expect on the other side. Do you accept directly the first word from your counterpart who's saying, no, that's not correct, and you say, oh, sorry, what should I do? Then you have to be confident and say, yes, I'm working on a good process. I have good people. I have valid data because I'm working, for example, with cost data, and they really know what they do. So then you have some kind of confidence and you can go into discussion, but doesn't mean that it's the single point of truth. So I always say it's using valid data is also some kind of opening a door. So means, okay, I have used a specific labor cost level. I have used a specific cost of a material. You have a different cost level. Please tell me why. So, and then we do some kind of communication. We get some kind of understanding. It has to be based on a valid level. Otherwise, we are losing this kind of confidence. And this is what we are, what's our guarantee on our side to say, okay, you do not have to care about the quality of the data. This is what we are doing, where we have our brand, where you can see who's working with that in the world as well. And then you play the game based on valid data. And if you need any support in that, we can also support you over there with the right trainings and workshops and so on. This is also part of our portfolio, because it's not only data asset, it's also having the right skills and the right tools.
Definitely, and we'll put the links in the description as well to that as well, especially into the website. But we're talking in terms of the communication there, and how important that is with the data. And a lot, obviously this is all about cost data visualization. This is our talk, so we probably should talk about data visualization in that. And obviously data visualization there's a variety of ways that can form, from tables and charts to reports to different ways of maybe presenting the data that we can do now versus things that were more difficult to do in the past. But they are vital. Data visualization is vital where we have complex data sets or we have complex stories that need to be told, often intertwined stories. What are some of the ways in which cost data are now presenting data to allow clients to see trends or to support decision making with those in those client meetings as well?
You said, what's the story you want to tell? And this is the right wording, because in which way we are using data is always combined with the story. And that doesn't mean that we are telling some fairy tales, yeah. But it is about who is the counterpart, who is my counterpart on the other side. What's the topic I want to describe? Is it only about what many buyers are doing, talking about material costs? Then I need to be able to see some diagrams to compare different development, price and cost developments of materials. This is what we do with several functionalities in our software. We have implemented some kind what we call a dashboard, where you can select in our database, in our market data solution, several materials, and you can directly compare them with each other, and you get different diagrams, and you can adjust the historical perspective for sure. You can also adjust the forecast, the trend data, to see, okay, what's the expectation when we look into the future. So this is something which seems to be very easy, but even the easy things have to be done, because this is the start of the story you're telling. When you are going more and more into detail, especially to the, let's say, manufacturing perspective, then we visualize a machine hourly rate calculation, which is at the end not really a diagram, but it's also some kind of structure of costs, because in many cases you're starting with getting an understanding of how to get to machine hourly rate. And I could tell you, when you look, as we have here, international audience as well, when you talk with a German guy like me, he will probably say, okay, machine means machine. When you talk with someone from the UK or from India or China or all around, which is not Germany, Austria, Switzerland, then probably all of these people think machine hourly rate means machine, labor, and overheads. This is something I learned. So as a German guy, yes. So therefore, you have to have functionalities, for example, our system, where you can easily see, okay, there is more than a machine in a machine hourly rate. So it's not about a historical or a forecast development. It is more about having a transparency about the costs which are part of a machine hourly rate. So, or when you look on fringe costs, which are part at the end of labor costs, then you need views where you understand what are the different elements, which are the values behind that, because in some regions you are getting more Christmas or bonus money than, for example, in the European world than in the Asian world. So even when you do not celebrate any Christmas over there. So, but you see, it's also about the wording at the end. So I want to say, when we talk about visualization, it's not only about having some graphs or diagrams. It is also how to get transparency about the costing elements which are leading to a final number, like a machine hourly rate, like a cost for labor, or even for overhead structure, because overhead structures, means indirect cost, are also quite relevant. I would not say ignored, but sometimes ignored because the people do not really know about this data exactly. We are also supporting with benchmark data for overhead cost structures.
Right.
And here we always have to ask, what's the base of the methodology you're using. When we talk about manufacturing overheads, is it old school direct wages, including or excluding fringe costs? Or is it like you do it nowadays? Is it using the direct production cost? Just as a simple example. So it's not only about having an answer to the question, oh, what is the percentage of what are the costs of manufacturing overheads? It is combined with several more questions to understand how to get to this data. And to making that easy, and easy means easy to understand, to work with that, to discuss about that. Again, it's an door opener, what we are doing here with the data. This is our daily challenge. Sometimes it seems trivial, but I can tell you it's never trivial to find good solutions. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, it's a really useful tool, a really useful way of being able to, because often if you go into these meetings, let's say you're a customer, and like let's say you're a tier 2 manufacturer, you're going to create a particular product for this customer, and you can't just present to them this is the cost of manufacturing, because they might say, well, because they've got a whole set of requirements, and you're building that into the cost and the finished item that you're building for them. So if they can't see clearly, or somewhat some level of breakdown, where you said, well, this is the cost of supplying the material, this is the cost of running the machine, and like you said, it's not just the machinery itself, it's the labor, it's let's say downtime as well, all these things, maintenance potentially, if you want to break it down to that. But then everything at the back end, you talk about the quality assurance, the inspection, all the testing as well. You can then break it down for them and say, well, and then if you want to go as packaging and everything else. So the fact that you can share that, have the ability to share that, allows for that discussion, and rather than it becoming something that kind of gets stuck of like, because one thing you're guaranteed to hear, no matter what industry you're in, is that's too expensive. And if that's the basis of your negotiation or your discussions, you're not discussing in nearly enough detail to actually get to a solution. So the ability to actually break it down, like you said, visually doesn't just need to be about charts. It can be a breakdown of the processes and the numbers associated with each of those steps. So that's really, really useful. So linked to that somewhat, do you have an example of a visualization which sort of revealed, we could say, cost saving opportunities, but something that wouldn't have been obvious just by presenting the number?
Yes. So we let me add one point shortly. As you said, we see that it is starting with really the raw data. So having cost of materials or labor rate. And then we have seen that this is becoming, the more you go into the topic, into the components, the more it is a topic of calculation, not only understanding the machinery rate as a part of, let's say, a hybrid from a data set to a part of a calculation. And at the end, it is really a complete calculation in a format like a cost breakdown. So, and all of these elements are part of cost engineering, which we are visualizing. Cost data is supporting, starting with the data, as we said in the beginning, with what we call, more or less, let's say, the raw data, because this is the base for doing any calculation. And the more we go to the calculation, the more we are coming from our market data solution to the what we call the calculation solution. So we also support that with a holistic calculation software. And we always try, not only from a functional level, also from a data level, to be as concrete as we can. So, for example, we have for labor costs in India and China, we have a specific data record for companies who are working more nationally and more internationally. So why do we do that? Because based on our network, on our comments from our clients and also from our projects, which we're doing as a consulting company, we have seen that there is a bigger difference between these types of companies, which we do not see in many other countries, but here it was quite impressively. And here we are included for China an option which we call reality. That does mean this is a company which is more nationally driven. We would say it's a small, medium-sized national supplier base, and therefore we have our own data base, its own data value, and we have this internationally acting companies. And here I can also share a screenshot later with you to show to your audience.
Mm-hmm.
But here we have significant different values, which we can for sure compare with each other, where we can see the different historical developments because they are different to each other. But here in this little example, we give really our users the possibility to decide which kind of company level they want to include, for sure, combined with getting potentials, because the smaller one has lower cost than the internationally acting company. But when you come back to the, for example, automotive industry, this can really have a big impact on the daily business. And this is what we see as our task, as our job, to say, we try to support you best. We try to really go into each detail. And when we find something which you do not find in any source, because we have the different approaches to get to the data, then this is a more than added value, which you get from cost data. And this is what you can extract, especially later in the calculations as well, to show in comparisons of cost breakdowns, for example, what's the impact of labor costs on the product, and means what's the impact in total when you are changing from a internationally driven to a more nationally driven supplier. So you see again, this is why I said in the beginning, it's a chain of activities from a decision regarding a data set which we're using, which is leading to at the end to an effect on the whole result of the calculation and how we interpret it and how we work with that.
Interesting. So with that, do you often find that your customers are surprised by which elements of the cost in the breakdown are often higher or or often lower than they were expecting? And
definitely still it's quite always surprising also for me. Not really surprising how other companies are working. Some are more data related, some less. And many companies do already a good job. Don't get me wrong, but it's not their core business handling data all day with their own team. So, and this is where we are really taking new approaches into their mindset and showing them what circumstances can be challenged in some way. We talk about labor, but we could also talk about the specifications of machines. We could talk about specifications of materials. Do you need a sheet which has a specific thickness with a specific surface quality, with a surface treatment? You see, we have dimensions of dimensions, which are all part of our database, of our functionalities. At the end, it's also some kind of functionality which we are integrating in our databases, some kind of intelligence, you could say, in these days. So, and this is also a driver where we are using more and more AI, because we are working with so high scope and amount of data, where AI can definitely help us to analyze more data, to get even more valid, approved results,
yeah,
but also being able to get even more into detail in new challenges we see ahead. Definitely there are companies who are saying we have never thought that something like that is already existing, but we always get for sure also new ideas from our client and new requirements. One of the last ones, I guess, in the last 2 years, it was coming up, getting more and more product carbon footprint calculations and the data therefore. This is what we are handling as well on our side, with what we are analyzing, what we are preparing with our team. So these data are also available, but this is an still upcoming topic. So first of all, you get a question, say, can you calculate the PCF, the product carbon footprint? I say, did you hear about scope 1, 2, or 3? And they say no. Then you know on which level you're talking about. And I do not say that we have to find on the best solution already, but it's always in progress. But we have made many, many steps already that our clients can go this way of getting learnings with us, and they get the guidance they need, that they get data, and they get, again, also as well, functionalities to be able to calculate these costs.
How in your experience with the data, where, let's say, clients have looked at multiple scenarios, understanding different elements of their cost breakdown, but understanding their carbon cost as well, how has that compared across in terms of, is it always the more environmentally friendly option is the most expensive?
I would say, from my point of view, from my experience, this is still the right conclusion. As many people say that the greener, the more expensive. But I know as well from many talks that in the industries, in the brown and the white good industry and the consumer goods and also in automotive, in the last years, many efforts have been invested in these technologies, and that this sentence is not completely right anymore. So there are already technologies and processes where the green one could, or is, let's say, not really the more expensive, could really even be cheaper. So and the more we are investing in such technologies, the more this will be switching as well to a level of having the green and the cheap solution. It is always in economics. You need the scaling effects. Yeah, you need the people who invest the money and the time and their skills and knowledge into finding solutions and scale that by volume. Very easy, I'm coming from business administration, you see, and this is what we see more and more. For sure, in many countries, it's political affected and supported as well. Definitely, because some technologies need some more time to change this economic situation. But we see that it's going more and more in this way. What's quite interesting is a different point. Just let me add, and this is also what we see with our data and where we try to find solutions and functionalities. When we are asking this question, what's about green and what's about the price, the cost, then we have two dimensions which we are comparing, obviously. Means at the end, a cost engineer gets a question from the manager, and you have a one component A, which is green and expensive, and the other is dirty and cheap. And then you get the question, what's the right one? What's the right decision? And mainly in many industries, not in all, I have seen as well companies who decided really to take the green one, and even when this is more expensive, but in the most cases, especially in these times we see, it's still the cheaper one, even when it's more dirty. And here the industry, or our industry, needs to find solutions to be able to compare, or let's say to transfer two dimensions into one to find a clear answer. So here you see again, it's not only about having in the first run data, information. It's then the next challenge how to combine this information and sometimes also to transfer this information and data by using a different functional approach. Here you could say easily, it's not invented by us, used by many other companies as well, that you transfer a product carbon footprint, this I say the CO2 costs, by a specific costing value for CO2e per ton, something like that, that you can transfer into real costs. So this is a little bit how it's done today. And as long as we do not find this level as you were asking for, that we have a level of cheap and green in the same time, we probably need some kind of these functionalities. And this is also something which is again on our table because they want to have the data, but they also want to have or users want to have functionalities to interact with that, to interpret that, and to talk with externals, with management about their extracts which they have built up.
Absolutely fascinating. I think that's going to be an interesting phase as we start to see more policies and a lot more implementation and rulings around, embodied carbon and the environmental impact of products. How that kind of data is integrated. As you said, it's multiple criteria. Cost is an element of that, and depending on where you are, what the product's for, and who the target audience or the target customer is, the importance of cost will, in the whole value of that product is dependent on the individual consumer and target audience. So,
and just let me add here, you see, it's quite heterogeneous and it's getting more complex. What does it mean for us? We started today talking about it's the base having valid data. And now we're talking about it's a base having complex data, having functionalities who help us to handle this complexity. So it's a journey which is going more and more forward. So, and we do not discuss about having valid data anymore. You need that. Without having that, you cannot do the second and the third step anymore. So, and new dimensions are coming up like sustainability, like when we talk about cost engineering itself, we talk about how to interact with models, with estimations, with the impact of cut files and drawings and AI, as you said. And there are more and more challenges for us as a community. These are quite intelligent people working there. This were all the time, yeah, that we have seen these experts in cost engineering, but it's not getting easier. Even when we find data or when we share data, even when we share new functionalities, it will be still challenging. But on the other side, this makes fun. So
yeah.
I can only say really welcome to everybody who wants to learn in these times about the different effects which we see in this world between economical and sustainability, between global and regional and technological insights. This is really what I do every day with much of favor.
And it's an interesting crossroads we're at as well with it. So we'll have to see how things move in the future. But for now, I just want to thank you for joining me on the show and giving the story of cost data as well, and some of the insights around what you do. Like I said before, the details, Tobias's details and the details of cost data are all going to be in the description. I guess, is there any upcoming events or anything you're attending where people can come and see you? If not, then I'll just tell them that they can see you on LinkedIn. And
yeah, actually, this is the easiest way. Yeah, feeling welcome to all of you, to our audience, to get in contact and to connect with me via LinkedIn. So I'm traveling around mostly Europe and seeing all of our clients and new clients and events, and will be in the UK very soon again. So and here so I'm always available for short talks virtually or on site. So just get in contact with me. It was a huge pleasure being here, talking about this. Yeah, what we are doing and what's the journey and the idea and the intention behind that. And as said, it's challenging, positively said, challenging time. We could talk about hours even more. Just try to catch a few perspectives, but I hope I could share some interesting facts. Why it's interesting starting with data and coming then to the new and next topics. So, and if anybody wants to talk with me further about that, as said, be welcome to contact me. Real
Brilliant.
pleasure.
Thank you very much.